Hello and welcome to Prairie Pulse. Joining me today on the show is a man with a lot on his plate. It's the Williston Economic Development Executive Director, Tom Rolstad. Tom, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, thanks. It's a pleasure to be here.
Tom, as we start off, tell the folks a little bit about yourself, where you're originally from, a little bit about your background.
Well, I'm originally from Williston. My grandparents all homesteaded out there, and growing up in North Dakota, went to North Dakota State, and got involved with economic development years ago, and worked a little bit at the state for 5 years, and been in Williston most of the rest of my career.
Okay. Well, but how did you get involved, and how did you end up as the Williston Economic Development Director?
Well, part of my background was in city planning as well, and so I did a few projects, and we were doing an industrial park, and that kind of got me going in this vein. And then pretty soon we needed to have an economic development director, and I knew more about it than others, so I kind of graduated into that. And at the time, architects were being laid off at architectural firms, so this looked like a good way to go, and it's been a blast.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about how are things going in Williston, and you know, I mean, a lot of people know about the oil boom, and that's
Right.
probably the biggest thing. But so talk about it from your perspective.
Well, you know, it's incredible, the growth. It's probably the kind of growth in 5 years that you would normally see in a town in 50 or 100 years. So it's almost too much growth too fast. But at the same time, with that growth, there's a lot of good things you get. So we're a town that's getting younger. We're more diverse. We have very good paying jobs. We have opportunity, and you know, believe it or not, we're actually putting a lot of quality of life into this thing. So we're not just doing the quantity thing, we're doing the quality piece. You probably heard about a new recreation center. It's incredible. And I had Ron Ness, had lunch with him a couple weeks ago, and he said, you know, Tom, I never thought I'd say this, but next time I come to town, I'm bringing my kids, and they're going to be at your rec center all day long while I'm in meetings, because they'll absolutely enjoy themselves. And so I think we're kind of starting to cross that threshold where we're not just filling oil field jobs, but we're starting to see families and develop the quality of life.
So you talked about the last 5 years, but you've been in the position 20 plus years now. Mm-hmm. How have you seen the population change over that 20 plus years?
Well, you know, we're kind of more of a Scandinavian community, I guess, historically. And kind of just stable to steady growth, but nothing like this. So the beauty is you're seeing a lot of new families move in. I've got kids all over my neighborhood now. Used to be a lot of grandmas and grandpas lived in the neighborhood. So it's kind of fun to see that. But you do see some of the older people moving somewhere close to their kids or grandkids. And I don't know that this is what I wanted to have. Yet the younger people are coming because of the opportunity.
Yeah, in 2003, we were talking a lot about out-migration and small towns losing so much population. Now you've got almost the opposite effect.
Right, and not just to Williston. I'll take a Stanley as an example. It was a town that my view was it's slowly dying away. Today it's a town with a future. Watford City, Sydney, you know, Tioga. It's amazing to see even these smaller towns out there that today are just doubling or tripling in size. Mm-hmm. Watford City was 2,700 people in their county, and they're 7,700 today, and that's like in 8 or 10 years.
Yeah. So what about the jobs? You talked about, are all the jobs coming from the oil industry, or are there spinoffs or a lot of other jobs available?
Well, it's kind of stunning, but our job service had 28,000 people walk through their doors looking for work last year. And our county hired 10,000 of them. So when you think that you had 10,000 jobs in 1 year, that's pretty stunning. Yes, there's a lot of guys coming for the oil field jobs, but last year we opened 13 new restaurants, and we started seeing wives and girlfriends and kids and whatnot coming because they knew they could stay with the breadwinner, but they could make good money working in these non-oil positions. So we're starting to see a wave of that happening. We're getting dentists and chiropractors and nurses and teachers and, you know, kind of that other part of the labor force that you like to have.
So will a new high school need to be built, or is that already in the works?
Yeah, we're actually have it on the ballot to do that. And it's kind of a different thing. We're looking to build a new high school. I don't remember the exact grades, but we'll shorten up the number of grades in the high school we will then take our middle school and we'll increase the number of grades because we just built a middle school next to our regular high school. And then we'll shorten up the number of years that you're in elementary school. So it's one way to kind of accommodate the masses but not have to build schools all over the countryside. So it's on the ballot. I think it's needed. We had 750 babies last year. The first quarter of this year, our prenatal counselings are double what they were last year. So we're starting to see the families come in, and we're seeing the impacts on schools more through the K through 6th grades. But so it's giving them a challenge, and probably under state funding formulas, things like that, schools are the hardest thing to fund. That's almost got to be funded locally. And so we'll see what our voters do. But Minot just passed one, Tioga passed one, I believe Wofford City. So I think everybody's kind of saying, no, schools are important, we got to do this.
Sure, I understand that. What about Williston's infrastructure? And I mean, what about the growing pains there? I mean, with an influx that fast, can you keep up?
No, but at the same time, it's amazing how much has been done. I think we have something north of $600 million worth of projects we need to do. We got $30 million a year from this legislature, so we actually, as a city, bonded ourselves for $105 million in order to be able to have a big construction year this year. But we're going to need more state help from the state to continue that construction next year. And I think, give us 5 years or 10 years in here, and we'll have kind of caught up with, once you get a sewage treatment plant to a certain size or a water treatment plant, our highway improvements are coming along very well. The bids are expensive. Not enough contractors, and you can see where if the contractor has to house his workers, it's going to cost him a lot of money for a bid too, because he's got to factor that into his costs. So there is an inflation factor to all these construction bids that kind of hurts us in a double whammy.
Well, and then you said 750 babies. I mean, the hospitals and the healthcare facilities out there, what about those?
Everything's growing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. The amount of, we had our annual meeting yesterday, and the mayor went through slides of all the things that have happened here in our community, and you just got to pinch yourself and go, this is amazing, Right. So,
well, with that said, let's turn to the housing. I mean, obviously there are some negative aspects that come with this kind of growth, and I guess you got the dubious honor of being the highest rental income, rental property in the nation a few weeks ago. I assume it's supply and demand, but what's being done about that?
Well, it is supply and demand, and we're doing an amazing amount of it, and not ourselves. We have investors from all over the country, or even all over the world, that are coming in to take this on. I think apartments, we're building some 1,500 apartments this year, or the last 2 years, and I think this year it might even approach 2,000 apartments. We've put a moratorium on man camps. We don't allow people to park RVs anywhere. They have to be in an RV park. You can't camp in our parks. So we've had to kind of regulate some of these kind of temporary uses, but we're pushing real hard for more of the permanent developments because we see this as being a very long-term play, and so we're pushing people for permanency. We're seeing a lot of single-family home lots come online, and so I think this will be a very big, family home construction year as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, talk about some of the long-time residents. You did earlier a little bit about the shift in sort of the demographic, so to speak. But I assume some folks are. I have read where some folks are actually leaving their small towns because they're no longer what they wanted. And so, what's happening there?
Yeah. You see kind of two migrations. One is if your parents have passed away, if you're our age and your parents have passed away and your kids have moved away, you might say, gee, my house is worth 2 or 3 times what it was. I can move to Fargo, Bismarck, or wherever and be closer to my kids and have probably a better health care situation. As you get older, that's a big factor for people. So we see that migration, but we also see a lot of kids that moved away because of job opportunities elsewhere, and a lot of the rest of the country is not doing well. And so they're going, I can move in with mom and dad and live with their house, and mom and dad are tickled to have them come home. And so you kind of, it's a younger migration in and an older migration out. We are doing quite a bit with low-income housing for seniors and that kind of thing, so we can keep some of these elderly that are on fixed incomes. And fortunately, the state, through their tax incentive programs, can help them if they're a property owner to get around their property tax and some of those issues. But it is changing the chemistry, and we're getting people for jobs from all over the country. So you're getting people from Louisiana, you're getting people from Alaska, from California, and so I've met more people who are Greek or Latin or Hispanic or English, Irish, Scottish, whatever. It's amazing what's coming into our town. So we're getting to be a little bit more of a melting pot.
Absolutely. I assume you travel quite a bit.
Yes.
So what do you hear from business people, oil people, and of course other economic development people, which I assume you associate with, about what's going on in Williston and western North Dakota?
Well, what's amazing to me is the money that flies into our town every day that is looking to make investments. And and they fly in big jets, personal jets, but whether it's New York money or Newport Beach or Bellevue, Washington, wherever they're from, but they're seeing a lack of places in the country to invest their money, and they see the opportunities that are here, and they're getting more and more confidence that this isn't just a flash in the pan, but something's going to be around. So the investments we have, Telluride, Vail, Aspen, Bozeman, Harbor Springs, Michigan, Orlando, Las Vegas. I mean, the investors who are coming, that's where they're coming from. So I think to some degree the national recession helped us, because we would have had a hard time recruiting workers and investors up here. But now there isn't any place to work or to invest, so they're coming here because of the opportunity. So that's maybe the good fortune we've had with everyone else's bad fortune.
You mentioned air, planes. What about your air transportation service into Williston in that area? I mean, is it adequate, or is it going to have to grow?
No, it's not adequate, but we just got jet service this year from United to Delta, which is a landmark for us. And so that's been huge, and we're basically working with FAA. The FAA commissioner was just out there, and we're basically going to build a new airport. And so that's one of those many tests that we've got to accomplish in order to move to the next level. And it takes time with the federal regulations, everything, to build an airport. So in between here, we're having to do some upgrades to the airport we have in order to get by, but knowing that it's kind of short-sighted because we're going to just totally replace that airport with a new one.
Okay. Yeah, go back a little bit. What about hotels? I mean, even when we send an engineer up there to do some work, I mean, it's hard to find a place. You say you've no more man camps. So are you seeing a growth in hotels?
Very much so. I think we've added some 13 or 15 hotels so far, stunning number of them. And I probably have 3 or 4 of them that it would be $250 or $300 a night to stay in that hotel. So it's pretty amazing, but that's part of the reason the investors want to be there. So a lot of growth in that, and not only in Williston, but in all the towns throughout the West are seeing a great big influx of hotel work. And now the restaurants have come, and it looks like retail is following behind that. So we're kind of looking forward to that, because that's when families really want to be there, is when you're kind of more of a, with our rec center, with our restaurants, and now with retail coming, it's kind of like, yeah, this has got the amenities I want if my family's going to move here.
Yeah. How many people do you have working with you and on economic development for Williston?
Well, directly on my staff, I have 6. I have about 3 part-time contractors that we use, but I have a number of boards with a lot of volunteers that help us as well. And so we believe a lot in partnering with people. So, I'd like to say we leverage a lot of other people to help us too, because there's a lot of work to be done.
Yeah. With that said, Tom, is there a fear that this will come to an end? I mean, I've heard people talk about the early boom years from years ago, and there's always a bust coming somewhere.
Sure.
There seems to be. What if fracking is banned for some reason, or something happens, or oil goes well below $100? So are people worried about that?
I guess it's one of those things that always could happen. I do think that most people have kind of the investors that are coming and most of the oil field and whatnot would say this is like a paradigm shift in thinking. And when we used to be looking for this little pot of oil like this, and so we drilled for a lot of dry holes. Today it's the whole tabletop, and the tabletop is the size of a small state. So by the time you math out just how many wells it would take to actually produce the mineral, it gets to be a big number. And so if anything, I'm hearing people who are saying we were going to be 10 or 15 years, now they're saying 25 or 30. I hear some that are saying we're going to be 50 or 75 years just drilling what we already know. So, and I kind of remind people that think of Texas, the Spindletop well was discovered in 1901. Today, between the Permian and Eagle Ford, Texas is on the biggest boom they've had, and this is 115 years later. Now, we've been around 60 years, but I think very likely we'll be doing oil out here in western North Dakota 60 years from now. So, but yes, the oil price could drop, but we're really with a world economy that's slow, so if it ever gets back on its feet, actually demand for oil is actually going to increase. So I think if we had a drop in prices, it would be more temporary, let's say a war at the Strait of Hormuz or something like that. But otherwise, and fracking, I think, has been proven not to be the hysteria that was given to it. I think it almost became more of a political ploy. And certainly if it did become regulated, North Dakota's geology is a lot different than that in other areas. So I think that we wouldn't be probably lumped in the same group. We aren't the lowest hanging fruit in terms of that type of regulation. So, but we're concerned ourselves. The fire in Castleton is something we're concerned about. The flaring is something we're concerned about. We live there too, and so I have oil trains going through my town too. So, I was with Senator Heitkamp recently, and we were talking about our problems and so forth, and I had to kind of say, you know, we face a lot of problems, but we solve problems every day. So when we have problems, we find solutions. You got to regulate. We had to regulate people parking on our streets. We had to regulate, but we find solutions, and so I think we'll get around a lot of those, and hopefully in the meantime, you know, we don't harm anyone in the way. But this change is coming so fast that no one anticipated all this growth.
Yeah. How far are we seeing the oil boom travel south and throughout the state, I guess, depending on how you look
Sure.
at it? And is it much into Montana? Just give us an idea.
Yeah, you know, Montana has always been important to us because about 40% of our retail sales come in from Montana. It seems as though we don't get as much over there. We're not sure if it's the geology or if it's the politics or what, taxation or whatever it might be. Although the geologist said on the Bakken that about 10% of the Bakken was in Montana and 90% was North Dakota. That might have changed now because we've learned a lot. Going south, the Bakken kind of tapers off not too far south of Dickinson. And so, and then as you go west, it might go a little bit deeper, south of Beach in that area. The Three Forks still, you know, I haven't seen a real good diagnostic of that, but that's the layer right under the Bakken, and it's not exactly the same footprint, so that might have a little more proximity. Dickinson is kind of talking a lot about the Tyler Formation, which is another one of those layers, and if they prove that up, that might open up a whole nother bonanza going south. Going east, it kind of seems like it stops about at the Montreal and Ward County line. Seems like there's still shale and there's still oil, but a lot of that oil is going to have to age for a few more million years before it's wine that's in its time. So, so it seems like it's kind of getting to be defined geographically. Mm-hmm. So you'll see a map that'll show a big splotch across North Dakota, Montana, but the actual functional part is smaller.
Mm-hmm. Does more need to be done on the infrastructure needs? Is the legislature doing enough? I mean, the governor said don't plan to have a special session. What's your take on this?
And I know no governor wants to call a special session. Mm-hmm. When that came up, I Googled and looked at every other state, and it's typically the party out of power who's kind of challenging the party that's in power, and so and I think once you have a special session, then other things might get opened up, and so I think that's their resistance to it. The governor, I do give him credit. I thought he was more perceptive of what we needed going into the legislature the last two times, and I think tried to deliver for us. The problem is we have to almost guess a year before the session what we're going to need 6 months later when the funding cycle starts, and then that's for another 2 years. So who's got a crystal ball that thinks ahead 3.5 years? So it would be nice to have something more on a formula. Like we know that we're going to grow in how many barrels produced, so if more barrels are produced, that the funding goes commensurate with the income. But I think they're going to do some emergency orders where they'll actually step up the funding quicker and give us the funding during the session as opposed to waiting till July, so we can start doing the engineering and design work and get the bidding going so that we can actually get construction done in the summer. And so, I think they're going to work with us. I think they understand the importance of it. And I do think, though, one thing is we as a state have spent a lot of money on roads out our way. And I think as we go forward, because most of these spacing units have one well in them, so now we can start being more mathematical about drilling these in sequence. And that way we can start piping the gas instead of flaring. We can start piping the crude instead of trucking it. We can start trucking the salt water piping the salt water instead of trucking it. And even the frack water, 400 truckloads to frack one well. If we could pipe that and off this new water grid that the state helped fund to the wells, we'll take 400 truckloads per well off of the roads. So I think there's a lot that regulatory, if they would push it, would help us, because probably the thing that people in our country fear the most are the trucks, contrary to what the media might say. The trucks are a hard thing on us, and so I think regulations could help a lot with that.
Yeah, because you've been talking about road conditions, and I'd heard stories about, take you 20 minutes to take a left-hand turn if there was no red light or no four-way stop. Are those conditions still like that out there?
They're still like that. We're probably still another year of construction to fix a lot of it. I'm not saying it's all going to be fixed, but it is impressive what the state has stepped up and done. And so I think that's going to help. And they're doing bypasses around most of the cities, so hopefully we get the trucks out of our towns and we become somewhat of an oasis in the middle of this thing and not a truck plaza along the route.
Do you worry about safety on oil rigs and leaks like happened maybe up in Tioga?
Well, we're concerned about all that, and North Dakota, I think, is because we always have had very low workers' comp rates. And the only way you get that is by being safe. And so safety is something we stress an awful lot. But, we don't like to hear the ambulance going down the road, who is this, what happened to them. So I think we're as concerned about it as anyone. I do think that we have to continue to stress safety. The oil field today is far safer than it used to be. For one, the more intense your work is, the more likely you're background checked and drug tested and everything else. So I think that part is much better. Even the technology they work with is done such it's probably not going to take off your hand or something like might have happened more so in the 80s. They literally threw chains around a moving pipe. So we're doing better all the time, but I think there's always more work to be done with that.
How about crime, Tom? We don't have a lot of time left here, but crime, people worry about it. Is it been overplayed a little bit? Because obviously with that much influx of people, everything kind of comes with that.
Right.
Good and bad.
Right. Well, I had the Reuters reporter came to Williston because she'd heard we were the rape capital of America or something. And then she came to my office after a meeting with the police department, and she said, "You're not the rape capital. I heard this, and so I went and talked to them, and you're not." And she said, "What are you going to do to promote that?" I said, "Well, we hope people would just get the story right." What has happened is our town has gone from 12,000 people to 36,000 people. And so, yes, have we had more accidents? Have we had more injuries? Have we had more thefts and so forth? Yes. But the rate hasn't increased. So North Dakota has always enjoyed the lowest crime rate in the nation, and our crime rate is still very much low, but you have to remember crime is related to the population.
Yeah. Tom, we are running out of time. What's the best part of your job?
I get to meet with people like you every day.
well, thank you for that. But it's got to be fun to see that much change and a lot of positive change going on in Williston.
It's incredible to see the people that want to come and invest in our state and our community, and I think North Dakota has a huge opportunity on the human side to be part of the bigger economy.
Mm-hmm. Well, if people want more information to find out more about Williston and maybe a little bit about the old book, where's the best place for them to go?
Well, I have a website called WillistonWire.com, and we have an e-newsletter. And also our office is WillistonDevelopment.com. So welcome you to take a look at them.
All right. Well, Tom, thanks for joining us today, and best of luck to you.
Pleasure.
All right.
All right.
Well, that's all we have on Prairie Pulse this week. And as always, thanks for watching.